Hey everyone, welcome to Big Flick Energy. So finally James Gunn gave us our chapter 1 of his DCU plan, which is called Gods and Monsters. So watching this video, I was so hyped and I'm actually very happy with what we got. Now I don't know that much about some of these projects like Creature Commandos and The Authority, but James Gunn has a way of introducing us to characters that we've never heard about like the Guardians of the Galaxy and making them some of the most beloved characters. Where honestly, for me, in Phase 5, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is my most anticipated project. So overall, it was a pretty interesting lineup of projects that was introduced, but we got some really strong projects that I think are going to be big in the future. And now that we know some of these projects, I feel like now is a good time to talk about who I would cast for some of these roles. My last video was talking about who I think the Guardians of the Galaxy actors would be best as in this new universe. And that was before we had gotten this new lineup of projects. But now that we have the projects and we have some of the characters in these projects, we can finally start delving into casting these characters. So here we go.
The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're gonna do that's a little bit different at DC is we're gonna have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action.
So from the Creature Commandos, the first character to bring up is Rick Flag Sr., father of the Rick Flag character we know from the 2 Suicide Squad films. Although this character had a role in the DCEU as Thomas Wayne, I would love to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan take on the role of this character. Based on the art shown to us, Morgan genuinely looks the part and would be able to do the character justice in his live action interpretations. He has done roles like this before, so I believe he's the perfect fit here. Next, we have Nina Mazursky, who will be played by Ming-Na Wen. She's an actress who is not only well known for animated and live action work through projects like Mulan, who she voiced, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but she also loves big franchises like Marvel and Star Wars, so adding DC to her plate could interest her. Even in Star Wars, she played the same character in animation as in live action, so she can pull off that transition once again, and she would kill the live action sequences as well. Next up, we have Dr. Phosphorus, who would be played by Hugh Laurie. I don't know why, but I imagine this character with Dr. Cockroach from Monsters vs. Aliens as the voice, based on how the character looks in the comics as a human, and Hugh Laurie did that voice, so it would be great to see him play this character as well, especially given he's worked in both live action projects and animation before. He's a bit old for action sequences, but that shouldn't be a problem given Phosphorus is actually a mostly CGI character. Next, we have Frankenstein, who should be played by Toby Kebbell. He's done superhero content before, which I kind of hated in the form of Fanforstic, but the biggest problem in that film was the story, because if it was the acting, then Michael B. Jordan would not be where he is today. Kebbell's main role that interests me as a comparison is his work in Planet of the Apes as Koba. So I would love to see that type of an intimidating character in Frankenstein as well, with an actor experienced with motion capture when these characters eventually show up in live action. Kebbell can definitely handle the role and has experience in voicing characters through Prince of Persia. And now the character who is supposedly the main character of the show, the Bride of Frankenstein, who will be played by Elizabeth Debicki. I believe she can definitely handle the voicing of the character, and as an actress who has worked with James Gunn before, she should be willing to do it. This team has a lot of CGI characters, so I would rather make the main character use more practical effects in live action to not repeat what happened in She-Hulk. And Debicki is tall enough to pull off this role and has the acting chops. I said in another video I would love to see her as Queen Mira, but from the looks of Gunn's plan so far, I think they're going away from those characters for now, like Aquaman and Mira, and I do think we're probably going to see Jason Momoa become Lobo in the DCU. Next, we have G.I. Robot, who will be voiced by J.K. Simmons. Simmons is a legend in voice acting right now, and has had his fair share of superhero appearances, whether it be in Batman, Spider-Man, or Invincible projects. Also, if you haven't seen Whiplash, highly recommend. Since G.I. Robot is manufactured for war, having him act like a World War II general fits well with Simmons voicing the character. And last but not least, we have Weasel, who was played by Sean Gunn in the Suicide Squad and is set to return to this role again for this series.
The next project up is Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it.
Now for Waller, Gunn mentions Team Peacemaker is returning, so the cast of this show is what we know already, where it'll most likely be Davis as Waller, Cena as Peacemaker, Strom as Vigilante, Brooks as Adebayo, Holland as Harcourt, and Ag as Economos. So there's no point in going deeper into some of the characters in this show.
Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
So for Superman Legacy, the only character I have in mind for now is Superman. So for Superman, we know they're going for a younger actor, and the most commonly fan-casted one is actually my favorite casting in David Corenswet. He genuinely looks the part, and when you hear him speak in his projects, he sounds very relatable and down-to-earth, which Superman needs to feel like. I'm of the philosophy that a character either needs to be relatable physically or emotionally to be likable, which is why I don't think many people like a character like Captain Marvel all that much. So Superman is obviously not going to be relatable physically, so he needs to be relatable emotionally, and I genuinely feel like Corenswet can make him relatable emotionally.
The next thing is a big premiere HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other Lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU.
So now with Lanterns, which is a project that I wanted to see for a very long time, and I'm really excited that it's going to be a buddy cop-esque project. And James Gunn kept on mentioning that it's going to be similar to True Detective, so that's pretty cool to see. And so far we only know of two characters, John Stewart and Hal Jordan. So for John Stewart, he will be casted as John David Washington, otherwise known as the son of Denzel Washington and star of Christopher Nolan's Tenet. He's an incredible actor who is making strides to be an A-lister that everybody knows, but a project like this could really put him on that tier of actors, especially considering how perfect he is for the role. His demeanor in a film like Tenet in comparison to iterations of Stewart's Green Lantern, like the animated version, show how eerily similar he is to the character and the way he acts, where you know if he gets the role, he will become one of those actors, like an RDJ as Iron Man, who is synonymous with the character. He has done his fair share of action films before, so that adds to his potential performance as the character as well. Next, as Hal Jordan, we have Glenn Powell, who would now do another film where he plays a cocky fighter pilot, except in this project, he's an ex-fighter pilot, who is still just as cocky, if not more. Powell has recently become a well-known actor and has proven himself as very effective in one-two punch films like Devotion, where given Lanterns will be like a buddy cop show but darker like True Detective, he would be able to bring about some lighter moments in the show. He also looks the part of Hal Jordan and will kill this role as well, and he's definitely up for the action sequences. If you double up with Glenn Powell and John David Washington as Hal Jordan and John Stewart, I have no idea how this TV show could fail. The only way that this show could fail is if Greg Berlanti is at the helm and it's given a CW budget.
Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes.
Now, like I mentioned before, I have no idea who The Authority is. But given James Gunn's track record with teams like this, with characters like Peacemaker, the Guardians of the Galaxy, I know The Authority is probably going to become a very beloved franchise after this. Now for The Authority, we start with the Doctor, who will be played by Matthias Schweighöfer. The Doctor is a Dutch character, and Matthias is a Dutch actor, who when looking at the actor and the character, he actually does look the part. Now his age may be an issue if they are going younger with this DCU, but we've seen older actors play characters for long periods of time before, and he's still doing action roles like Army of Thieves. Next, we have Swift, who is from Tibet, which was very difficult to find the right actor for, given there are not too many well-known Tibetan actors. So I decided to go with a Mongolian actor who have similar origins to those of Tibet, with Ariana Gansu. She's a great actress who would be able to pull off the role effectively and would give her that A-list boost for her career. The next character is Apollo, who I decided would be best played by Taron Egerton. Although Apollo is a much larger character, Egerton has been fan casted as Wolverine, who is short but is still a pretty strong character, so if Egerton can pull off Wolverine according to fans, I'm sure he could pull off Apollo. He kind of looks the part also if you look at some iterations of DC's Apollo in online imagery. Apollo is also a gay character, which Egerton has played before in Rocketman, so he would be comfortable in this role alongside just being an actor a lot of people want to see become a big face in the superhero genre. I'm sure he would kill this role. This is then followed up by Apollo's partner, Midnighter, who would be played by Ben Aldridge, who hadn't really been known that well until Knock at the Cabin, which just came out, where his performance is apparently incredible. I've yet to see the film, but this is what I've heard. He's an actor that plays a gay man in the movie, so he would probably be comfortable in this role as Midnighter, and he actually kind of looks the part of Midnighter. I could definitely see him take on this mantle and give a spark to his acting career in a more action-packed role, as he shows a wider audience how good of an actor he can actually be. In Knock at the Cabin, a lot of people say the two best performances are by Ben Aldridge and Dave Bautista. So if Dave Bautista sees him as a great actor, I'm sure he would be able to talk with James Gunn and he could get Aldridge the role. Next, we have Jenny Sparks, who will be played by Natalie Dormer, that I have no idea why, but she just seems like the perfect casting for this character to me. She looks the part and has the personality to play the part, alongside being British, which this character really loves to show off. So she is genuinely the perfect casting for the character in my eyes. I do not know much about the actual character, but I know from what I've seen of the character that she has a certain charisma that I feel like Dormer could pull off. This is then followed by the engineer, who will be played by Kiki Lane, who I know from Coming to America, where she's a good actress and has a likable personality on screen. This could give her a spark in her career to become a more well-known actor. Lastly, we have Jack Hawksmoor, who will be played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who looks like the character and would make a return to the world of DC after a short run as Robin in The Dark Knight Rises. He's a great actor who has done a variety of roles from Inception to The Night Before to Snowden, where he has a level of charisma he's shown in those projects alongside a more serious side in a film like Snowden, where whichever path they choose to take with Hawksmoor and the team, he would fit in perfectly.
We're doing a television series called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island.
So for Paradise Lost, this is actually arguably the project I'm the most excited for, because although I have not seen Game of Thrones, I saw House of the Dragon, and I'm going to watch Game of Thrones. And I absolutely loved House of the Dragon. So to hear that this project is going to be inspired by Game of Thrones, but in the world of DC, that's just something that really interests me. And when I was making my DC 10-year plans videos, I did not make a video on the video games, which James Gunn said that there would be video games in this world. He hasn't announced any. But I had the idea of making an extra DC 10-year plan video of only video game ideas that I had, and one of them was called The 12 Olympians, which actually kind of goes into what I think they're going to go into with Paradise Lost. So I felt like that would have been really cool to see. Also, if you guys want to see that 12 Olympians story, I would love to make a video on it, because I really do think that it's an interesting story that even with the new DCU, they should probably do. But back to Paradise Lost. So for this show, although I think I know the time period that they're going to go into, I have no idea who will star in this show. So I'm just going to leave this project alone for now for castings, and once we get some details, then I'll actually go into the castings.
The introduction of the DCU's Batman is The Brave and the Bold. The Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU.
So now probably the project that I was the most excited to hear about was The Brave and the Bold. I love that we're getting a Batman, and I know that we already have the Batman in Robert Pattinson, and I love that character. But even from that first film and what Matt Reeves has said, we know there are some things that we will never see with that Batman. Like, it's going to be very difficult to see a comic accurate version of Poison Ivy in that universe, or a comic accurate version of Bane in that universe. If anything, the closest I will get to it is like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, where he's more just a normal man that wears a mask. Where he's still a great character, but he's not the Bane that we know. But what Gunn is giving us is a Batman that is actually in this world where things are not normal. It's not a grounded world. There are people that can fly, there are aliens, there's magic. And that is what he is trying to do with this world. And I believe that is going to happen with a prime Batman. So as the DCU's Batman, we have Theo James, who is very well known for his performance on the small screen through White Lotus and Downton Abbey, but has also played an action star in the Divergent film franchise. Considering it seems like they're going with a prime Batman for the DCU, which I definitely think is the right move since Robert Pattinson is at the beginning of his career and Ben Affleck was an older take on Batman, but it seems like they're going to do the prime Batman, and the 38-year-old actor fits the bill well. Not only that, but he also has a deep voice reminiscent of animated and Arkham Batman, and has actually shown off his Batman voice in an interview before. And that Batman voice I actually do think sounds pretty good.
It's my Batman voice.
He looks the part and would definitely be able to act the part. He's tall enough. I think if you look at him, he looks like he could be Batman. He can definitely play the billionaire playboy. He can do the action sequences. I think he's actually the perfect casting for a prime Batman. As Damian Wayne Robin, who we know will be about 10 to 12 years old in the project according to Gunn, we have Leo Hart. I don't know much about him outside of his performance in House of the Dragon, where I thought he did well, and it shows he's willing to play a role as a more devious or darker kid, which Damian is. I'm not saying that Leo Hart played a devious kid in House of the Dragon. I know that he was a more innocent character. But it's just a more gory TV show, and he's willing to play a role that's in a gory project, which Damian Wayne would have to be a gory Robin. But let's just hope he's still young enough by the time this movie starts filming.
Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series.
Now for Booster Gold, I am really excited for this TV show. I love his relationship with Blue Beetle. I'm not sure if Blue Beetle's going to be in this show. Maybe he'll be in season 2. But I know that I love Blue Beetle as well. Blue Beetle is actually my favorite DC character, and I cannot wait for that Blue Beetle film, which is apparently going to be part of the DCU, since it doesn't have any direct connections to the DCEU. So I'm just very excited for Booster Gold. It's going to be a comedy, which is going to be a nice change of pace for this world, where it really seems like DC is going to take a different outlook on their franchise from Marvel, which is kind of nice to see, where some projects are going to be comedy, but then there's going to be some darker projects like a Swamp Thing, like a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. But this is the comedy project for DC. And as Booster Gold, I decided on an actor who is just naturally pretty funny and would fit into Booster Gold's shoes quite smoothly in Andy Samberg. Look, I know he does not have the blonde look, but his personality fits so perfectly that I could see them pulling a Brooklyn Nine-Nine and just giving Samberg frosted tips again like they did in that show. He's just very charismatic, and he's able to make awkward and cocky characters very likable, which is needed for this role. Because Booster Gold is a very cocky character, and if he's the only star in this show, that cockiness could come off badly, and it could lead to fans antagonizing the main character in a similar way to what happened with Velma in her recent TV show Velma. But that is just one of many problems with that Velma TV show, and that is a show that if they do make a second season, I really hope people do not hate watch it, so that they can just start canceling that show.
One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way, so she's a much more jaded character.
So Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, I'm pretty excited that it's not going to feel like a Superman film, because we already have that friendly Superman film in Superman Legacy. So to have this darker take on a Kryptonian is going to be a pretty cool character to see in this world. So for Supergirl, my ideal casting for her is Lily Reinhart, who is best known for her role in Riverdale, which isn't the best way to introduce an actor, but just look at her and tell me she does not look the part. She can definitely play into the more charismatic side of Supergirl. Now, my only fear is that this is a different iteration of Supergirl, where she's a darker character based on the comic run of Woman of Tomorrow. However, I do think Lily has the acting chops to play a darker version of the character, where she's probably the best actor amongst the female cast in the Riverdale TV show. All I know is she looks and sounds the part, and will need to prove she can act the part, but that's a task I'm willing to bet she would succeed in because she has everything else you need for this character.
And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing we're going to talk about, a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories.
Now the last project, we have Swamp Thing, who I believe should be played by Derek Mears and Jake Gyllenhaal. Now I know it's strange to bring up two actors, but Swamp Thing is a character who is similar to Hulk, where he's a human doctor but becomes this massive beast. Difference is you won't see much of his human side. Now Gyllenhaal could play both versions of the character, but after seeing how believable a practical Swamp Thing was in the recent TV show, I feel like this could be a better option for the character than as CGI, in which case I can't see Gyllenhaal in both roles. Rather, I would love to see Jake be the intelligent doctor that becomes Swamp Thing and can sell us on his transition to make us feel for what the character is going through, and then when the character becomes Swamp Thing, we let the horror icon in Derek Mears help make Swamp Thing a character spoken in the same way as Frankenstein's monster and Michael Myers. My choice for Mears was because, for one, he's 6'5" and face behind the mask of slasher icon Jason Voorhees. With that build, he can make Swamp Thing seem extremely intimidating in a film meant to be horror in the DCU. With all of the commotion behind the scenes of Jason Voorhees' return to the big screen, DC has a chance to pick Mears up before anything gets running with those projects, and can help create a new horror icon in Swamp Thing. So for now, these are the 10 projects that James Gunn has told us from his Chapter 1 of the DCU. And apparently this isn't even the full Chapter 1. I'm sure part of Chapter 1 are the video games as well, which I think after they release the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League game, known as Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, when they release that game, I feel like they're going to start giving us more details about some of the video games that could be in this world. And then I feel like another one will be Peacemaker Season 2, and we'll probably see some of the other main characters pop up later on. He just wanted to give us the first 10 projects for now, and then later on we'll get more. But for now, these are the 10 projects. These are the actors that I think would fit the best in these roles, and I cannot wait to see who they cast for these characters, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, and I would love to hear what you guys think about my listings. If there are any characters you think will pop up in these projects that I did not mention, and if you do want to hear about that 12 Olympians game idea, which doesn't necessarily have to be a game, it could work as a TV show also. I don't think it would work as a film, but as a TV show, as a video game. If you guys want to hear that story, if you have any other characters, please let me know. Please like, comment, subscribe, click the bell notification for more videos when they come out, and see you next time on Big Flick Energy.